Hi. Today I'm going to be reading to you the Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polacco. And when you hear this story today, I want you to be thinking and listening really, really hard. At the end, I'm going to ask you what you think the theme or lessons are of the story. And I also want you thinking about Anna's character. This is actually an immigration story from Patricia Polacco. So it's a memoir because this is her great grandmother who immigrated to the United States from Russia. And I want you to follow along with me. And then in Google Slides, I'm going to stop for a couple times and ask you to jot your thinking. You want to make sure that you also have that open. The Keeping Quilt. When my great grandma, Anna, came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day long. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like back home Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and the most of their neighbors were just like them. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them, too. The only things that she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka she liked to throw up in the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. From then, a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havelina's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. We will make a quilt to help us always remember home, Anna's mother said. It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night. And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept needles, threaded, and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. So I want you to stop the video here, and I want you to go into slides, and I want to know what you're thinking about. I want to know what are your thoughts about this quilt that is going to be remembering home. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup. The quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky. They were engaged. Under the wedding chuppah, Anna and Sasha promised to love each other and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. So here, I want you to stop the video again, and I want you to think about the different culture and how they celebrate a wedding versus the traditions that many of us follow in America here, and how maybe your family might celebrate a wedding. So you can kind of do a little comparing and contrasting there. When my grandma Carl was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carly was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so she would never know poverty. A flour, so she would always know love. Salt, so her life would always have flavor. And bread, so she would never know hunger. Carly learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and to clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anna told Carly. And again, the quilt became the wedding hoopah, this time for Carly's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carly's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carly and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and great Grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kulach, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. So stop the video again and be thinking about traditions that you might have in your family. So traditions are things that are done maybe year after year during birthday celebrations, holiday celebrations. When great Grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now a grown-up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her hoopah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world, and it was the tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. At my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. 20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she too will leave home and will take the quilt with her. All right. So the last thing I want you to do is I want you to be thinking about themes or lessons in this story. And I want you to write it on the last slide that I have there. Make sure that your theme is in a complete sentence and then explain why you chose that theme. You may be able to come up with more than one. If so, please do. And after you finish this, I would like you to stop the slides, and I will meet with Mrs. McCullum's friends at 8:15, and I will meet with Mrs. Zadora's at 10:15 to do a lesson with you. So for the other time that you have, you may do some independent reading, and please use your reading log. Okay, thanks.